Now, another argument that I have against the central bank, and one of my strongest arguments, and a major reason why we should always be concerned, is the central bank and this whole system facilitates the growth of government. And if the growth of government is the opposite of defending your liberty, you only get the growth of government by diminishing personal liberty. And that should be enough. But of course, some people like big government. There's some people who delight in ruling over other people, and then there's a large number of people who are convinced that they're going to get benefits, you know, in this manner. So it's a sinister tax is what it really is. Governments, there's enough of a coalition together that wants to see government grow, whether it's for the welfare reasons here at home, or if it's for these, for the ideas of promoting our goodness around the world. It has nothing to do with protecting oil or anything else, but we need a military presence around the world. But if you had honest money and governments couldn't counterfeit, these ideas would still float around, but they would be forced to pay for it immediately. If we could ever get this whole notion that you shouldn't even allow the government to borrow, and they would have to tax us directly and say, look, if you want to do A, B, and C, we're going to take money from you and we're going to pay for it. This would slow things up. But there's a convenience for those who want big government to have the tax be an inflation tax, and that is vote for all the welfare programs, vote for all the warfare programs, don't be responsible for this, morally responsible or economically responsible, just pass the programs, and if you find your coalitions, you get reelected. And this has worked. You know, running as Santa Claus is a lot better than running against Santa Claus. And that's been done for many, many years. But that's coming to an end. That's why there's a difference right now, because this system is in the process of failing. But one of the reasons it lasts so long is in the early stages, which can last for a long time. And those who promote the system believe that they're smart enough to control this and make it so gradual that hardly anybody catches on. But eventually it fails. But in the meantime, you can see the erosion of liberty. And if you go from 1913 on, and Matt said in the introduction that we're working with a dollar that's probably 4 cents on the dollar of 1913. This is something that we have to deal with it, and the Federal Reserve, of course, is something that we must take care of, and take care of rather rapidly. But the size of government then keeps growing. The special interest keeps voting the people in. They get reelected. And it never seems to end until it ends with a calamity and ends with a bang. And then there's a choice of going one or two ways. If we don't reestablish the notion that liberty is more valuable than tyranny, what we get is tyranny. Because they will need more power and force to hold things together. They can't bribe us. They can't just say, well, what do you need? You need more money and more welfare programs, and keep this group happy, and keep the business groups happy, and keep the oil people happy. That eventually ends. And the real big question is are they going to be so powerful that they just come down hard on us? And that, of course, means tyrants. That means dictatorship, because they will have no other way of maintaining order, and because there will be so much poorer. And we're in that transition now, because we're becoming a much poorer country. Now, we were poor 10 years ago, and even before that, but we were doing well because we were able to borrow a lot of money. But I think when the history of this past decade is written, I think it will be seen that in the collapse of the NASDAQ bubble was really the beginning of our serious problems, although the markets went back up and the statistics weren't all that bad. But I don't think real employment ever was resumed. There's been underemployment. Now the two unemployments are those numbers are growing drastically. But I believe this whole thing started in 1990 year, in the year 2000. Now the last issue that I want to talk about may be the one that becomes more practical for getting the attention of the American people. And that has to do with the economic ramifications of the Federal Reserve, and the reason why we shouldn't have the Federal Reserve for just simple economic reasons. The mandate in the Federal Reserve Act for the Federal Reserve was to maintain the value of the dollar and to have full employment. And maintaining the value of the dollar means stable prices. Well, they failed. They flunked. They get an F. They're destroying the value of the dollar, and we have perpetual increases in cost of living. They say, oh, no, it's not all bad inflation, and we're only destroying the money at 2% per year. But it's a lot worse than that. But 2% is evil, too. You know, under sound money, your value of your money goes up. Costs go down. Cost of living goes down. You get more, and that's how we become more prosperous. But they have totally failed in maintaining the value of the dollar or giving us stable prices. Nobody wants to talk about the inflation in medical care. Yes, prices. People are unhappy because they can't afford it. Well, they can't afford it because their dollar doesn't buy as much. You say, oh no, we don't have inflation. The government says the CPI is only going up 1–2%. But the cost of medicine goes up much more rapidly. But when you create new money, the cost goes up differently for different areas. If everybody's wages went up at the same rate as the money supply would go up, and everybody's costs would go up the same, it would be irrelevant. But it doesn't work that way. Your wages and your income never keep up, and certain prices go up faster than others. Some people suffer more. The people who get to use the money first benefit. The people who get to use the money last, the average person, the middle class, they use the money and they get stuck. If you're in retirement, you might suffer more than others. But you know, they come up with these figures and they say, oh, prices went up 2% last month. But if you exclude food and energy, they only went up 0.5%, so it wasn't so bad. But some people, food and energy prices go up, and it means a whole lot. Some people who have to pay for their medical care, the prices go up a lot, and that's important. But wherever the government is involved, you will see the money gravitating there and pushing prices up. You don't have a better system, but the prices go up. So as we have pumped more money into medical care over these last several decades, we didn't get better quality, and we didn't get more people taken care of. We just had prices go up. Same thing in education. They pump out the money, the government's mandating and sending money. Everybody goes to college. Well, does everybody get a better education? No. The prices of education go up and the quality of education goes down. Whether it's the public school system or even the college system, there's just too much money in there, and prices are pushed up. So we have a lot of inflation that exists today, and yet the Federal Reserve is claiming great victory. I mean, right now, one of the greatest dangers to us is that they're getting very confident, and they're trying to portray that everything the government, the Federal Reserve and Treasury has done in the past year has been successful. And if that prevails, we're just going to get more and more of this. It hasn't been successful. Even if things have been temporarily resolved to the point where it's not moving as rapidly, doesn't mean that we have solved the problems, because we're doing exactly the wrong things that we've been doing for so many decades. And yet there's too many people who are claiming that they've had this tremendous success. But the most important thing about and I think I'm going to finish up with this point, because we're getting near that time where we can take some questions. But it's the business cycle. You know, they claim that they design these programs and the spending and all to help the middle class. But a characteristic of inflation, the steady destruction of money, is the destruction of the middle class. One other characteristic of the destruction of money through inflating the money supply is that it's not steady. There can be a steady erosion of the value of the currency, like it's happened in this country, but the end stages are unpredictable. When they come, when the confidence is lost, then there's a crash at the end. People panic. And we do not have the strength of our economy due to the artificial inflation that we've had. Our good jobs are overseas. We're a debtor nation like never before, the biggest in the history of the world. And who's holding our dollars? People, Russia holds dollars, the Arabs hold dollars, Chinese hold dollars, the Japanese hold dollars. And the only thing restraining them is the fact that if they don't want to buy anymore, but if they don't buy a few and if they start selling, they will lose the value of the dollar. So they have an interest in trying not to panic the markets. But the panic always comes. Eventually it will come, and that's what we have set the stage for. The big question is when it's hit and we have a major crisis, are we going to blame the right people? And the right people and the right system, the right philosophy to blame, the correct one, is the Federal Reserve System.